All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
And greetings all, my credibility glasses firmly in place. I am ready to play. I am telling you, it's going to be a terrific show. In fact, we have a lot of great guests, and right out of the chute, one of my favorite guest stops through. In fact, he is my favorite Britisher, so he will be through in minutes. We also announce, as you know, the winner of Mark's Madness, which is coming up in just a minute or so. We'll do that. And it's been an exciting, adrenaline-filled Mark's Madness. And if you're new here, this is something that we've been doing for quite some time. In fact, Mark's Madness started on the radio, where we all started. Then we came over to YouTube, and we brought the competition here. It was full of upsets, surprises, a Cinderella story, and a fan favorite. All of it got washed out through the voting, and we will make the announcement in just a moment as to who is the winner. Three-time Oscar-winning filmmaker and award-winning author Mark Harris will be through here today. And the travesty that is the Trump case on espionage and document stealing, that is something that we'll get the comments of former federal prosecutor David Katz on. The judge in that case, as you are aware, Aileen, a Trump-appointed judge, has every bit of political incentive and career incentive to throw the case for Trump. And it looks as though she is doing just that. That in the second hour. I mean, hey, if the guy's not guilty of anything or whatever, the guy deserves a fair trial. But the whole notion of a fair trial now in America is a look, it's been, you could certainly argue for a long time, justice has been perverted in courtrooms nationwide. All I'm saying now is Trump appears to be sufficiently mobbed up to skate, perhaps, on this espionage trial in Florida. We'll get to that in a second. Stan Pollock, my favorite CPA, first into the Super Chat, and a big shout out. Good morning to all.
Big shout out.
Stan Pollock, CPA. Again,
Thank you.
When I'm CPAing, I am.
Morning.
I'm Stan Pollocking. Gail Guthrie, thank you for a chit.
Big shout out.
Now, that refers to Mark's Madness. Chit was the odds-on favorite to take it all. Trevor Starr in Hollywood notes, and thank you for the super chat. I'd like to point out that both of the finalists are drops that I grabbed and provided to the show.
Yeah.
So
done,
I
Trevor.
win either way. Wow.
Yep.
Well, that is a, yeah.
Do you know who I am? I'm kind of a big deal.
Also, I should have done a bracket. Every drop I voted for won. Yeah, you should have done a bracket.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people who should have done brackets that didn't. But you'll know next year. Not a big deal. So before I get to Anthony and we get the show started, it is the tradition of this show to turn things over in Mark's Madness to Albert. I wonder, Albert, before we get to the announcement of the winner, could you just give us some of your personal reflections on this tournament?
I mean, it's been the most different and deviating tournament that we've had so far. I feel like it's just the same few that are, as your panels are dropping.
My panels fall. These are temporary panels, and you're going to see how temporary in the minutes to come. So the surprises were what, Albert, would you say?
The surprises were abundant, actually. Our finals had a 9 and 26 seed. This is the first time we didn't have a top 4 seed in the finals. So
yeah.
I think that says a lot about what's been going on. And we had a lot of new drops included as well. And we had a lot of people ask about the old drops, but they seem to be a little out of rotation and not used often. So
yeah, the finals, as everyone is aware, brought chit in, and also
there's always been in this country 30 to 35% idiots.
That Jim Avila pronouncement, that was a Cinderella story and continues to be a Cinderella story. So I think we have this. Would you consider this a major announcement, Kamish, the winner?
Yeah.
I think so.
A major announcement from the Mark Thompson Show. A major announcement.
Kamish, I turn it over to you now, and this is exciting. If you could let us know who is the winner of Mark's Madness this year.
Do you have my envelope here?
Wow.
Who won? I crunched all the numbers, and your 2024 Mark's Madness winner, 30 to 35% idiots. Congrats.
Wow!
Yes.
Congratulations.
Well done, Jim Avila. Nice.
30 to 35% idiots is the winner.
There's always been in this country 30 to 35% idiots.
Oh, wow. Congrats to Jim and the idiots. Number one, the first Mark's Madness title, 5 Edward R. Murrow Awards. Jim, display your virtual trophy proudly, my friend. Well done, says Luis. And Luis is right. It is a brag
Big
that can
shout out.
sit up there with Jim's distinguished journalism career. There it is. The 2024 champion of Mark's Madness is 30 to 35% idiots. Wow. Good stuff.
And we do have a winning for the standings, but we have Anthony Davis waiting. We'll review that in the next break.
Yes, we're going to, after Anthony, we will tell you that beyond just the drop that won, one of our listeners/viewers won, maybe more than one, who picked the bracket with the most accuracy and picked that to win. Many people had chit, so they're done. But there were those who went for 30 to 35% idiots. We'll get to those winners after Anthony Davis. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
come on, I yield to no man in my respect, in my regard, and dare I say it, my love. For my favorite Britisher, he is the great Anthony Davis, everyone, from Midas Network. He of the 5-minute newscast. I am blown away by his takes. I like his weekend show. Everything he does, it moves me. And it's great to have Anthony Davis with us. Yes. Anthony, you and I share something, but you really know, before I get to the brute politics of life and the politics of politics, you know the cruise world very well. I know it a little bit.
It's my guilty pleasure, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the reason I mention it is that yesterday we had been sort of watching that story about the cruise crew of 8, the people who went on the excursion and then they missed the boat coming back. We've been watching that for several days, and finally we did the story yesterday. And I was saying I really just don't have a lot of sympathy for them since they make it so excruciatingly clear that you have to be back to the boat at a certain time. But I was really anxious to get your take because you really do know this cruise world better than do I.
Well, there's 2 issues here, right? One is that when they tell you to be back at, say, 7:30 or the ship's leaving at 7:30, they refer to ship time. And ship time is not the same as port time. So if you are on an excursion and you look at your watch and it's 6:30 and you're like, we've got an hour to go, is that cruise time or is that the excursion time? Because, the ship has to keep to its own schedule, and because it travels through time zones, it maintains its own clock. So the only way to check which time it is to look on the app for the line, for the cruise line, and that'll tell you what ship time is. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is that this group of people did a private excursion, so they didn't book it through the cruise line, and that is actually quite good advice because it's often about 50% cheaper if you book it directly with a private company. Invariably, it's the same company that the cruise line is booking. The difference is you don't have the insurance, and so if you book it through the cruise line, you pay a bit more, then they're not going to leave without you because you have effectively booked a trip through the cruise. So that's really the anomalies in this case. But I don't have sympathy for these people because I'll be honest, don't go on excursions. The whole point of cruising is for the ship. Get yourself a ship that you love so much. I mean, I went on a cruise recently to the Bahamas, and as we arrived into Nassau, We didn't get off. It looked beautiful. The water was a blue I've never seen anywhere other than toilet duck. And I just chose to stay on the ship and say, yep, here I am in the Caribbean, but I don't feel the need to step foot on it right now. So
you can get pretty drunk on the ship if it's a nice ship, and
Yeah.
So I completely understand the reluctance to get off, but I also understand how there's a lot of stuff to see, and one of the great ways to see the world is to cruise, But
well, I
you
disagree with that. I don't
okay.
think one of the great ways to see the world is to cruise. I think to cruise is to spend, what do you get, 6-7 hours in a port? That's not a great way to see the world. If you go to a city and you want to take in the culture and really, marinate yourself in local fare, you've got to be there for at least a week or 2 weeks. So don't think
I
that
mean, a
it's
week or
travel.
2 weeks is a real immersion. But I would
Yeah.
say you're right about. Here's what I would say to split the difference, and I have done this.
Yes.
A cruise gives you a sample maybe of a place. You're
Right.
absolutely right about
Yeah.
it's impossible. You're not really getting a flavor for the place. Plus, they're used to this flank of people just disembarking and taking
Yeah.
over the town. It's pretty crazy. It's like the
horrible.
most it's the most unnatural kind of invasion of tourism that one could possibly imagine. But anyway, but it does give you a flavor for the place wherever it might be. And then, like ordering off a menu, if you want to go back to those various places that you might have sampled, then you go back on your own. We did that with Vietnam. We've been to Asia a couple of times as a result of the cruise that we took there, which, as you suggest, didn't really give us a sense truly of what was going on, but we had enough, we were teased enough that we decided to go back. So
Thank
maybe
you for
that's
your
what's the difference.
service.
Yeah. And so, but I had to get your take, so thank you. Listen, there is so much going on, and I'm wondering, I want to get your take on what's happening in Florida, but what have you found most of your Midas Touch audience most sparked by when it comes to what's happening both in politics and worldwide?
I think it's how the media is not really taking the threat to democracy in the U.S. seriously. That's the thing that kind of keeps coming back up time and time again as I see it. And I listen to the radio. I listen to National Public Radio, which is a bit of a cliche for a white person in Los Angeles. But there you go. And they talk about the election like it's a standard 2-horse race. Joe Biden versus Donald Trump. They don't seem to make mention of the fact that one of them is about to go into a criminal trial or, paid off a porn star or stole classified documents or tried to overturn the election. It's like business as usual. And I find that very worrying. And I think that most kind of independent journalism viewers on YouTube and elsewhere really get that sense that the mainstream media is letting the nation down. And this is how we sleepwalk into authoritarianism. And that's something we have to take very seriously.
The idea somehow that and this is, I think, the problem, that there are institutions within American democracy or this democratic republic that will naturally be guardrails on this concern about authoritarianism. I think people default to that. Hey, it worked the last time. They tried it. They tried a violent overthrow. They tried a legal overthrow. They tried everything they could to subvert the last election, and it didn't work. Why? Because American institutions are so strong.
Yeah, but it didn't. It did work because Trump is still with us and he is running for president. So that's proof that it didn't work. Because if the checks and balances and the separation of powers and all of the things that we hold dear as the system, if it had worked, Donald Trump would be in a prison cell right now because he basically he went against his own oath of office. And that is the reason why, in my opinion, the fall of democracy happened. People say, we were so close. The fact that he is running and the fact that he is not in prison, and here we are 3 years after the insurrection and still nothing. And by the looks of things, he's probably going to get off on a lot of these legal cases. Suggests to me that your system of checks and balances has failed, and there is an institutionalized denial that I am witnessing, and I can't really shout any louder. So do you know what I did today, Mark? I wrote to a whole bunch of news channels, radio news channels and TV news channels, to the bosses. I found all their email addresses, and I just wrote saying, look, how seriously are you taking the threat to the fall of democracy in the US? Are you both siding the issue? What are your policies on this? Because I've been listening and I don't hear anything. And this isn't because, I'm a Democrat. I'm not. I don't even get to vote in this country. But I am vehemently pro-democracy. And nations will fall foul of a dictatorship very easily if you take your eye off the ball.
The thing that is striking as well about the body politic in America is the support that Donald Trump has. I mean, this isn't just, some sleight of hand.
Right.
He has real support. Now, you can say, as our friend Avila said,
there's always been in this country 30 to 35% idiots.
So, I mean, you can say, well, those people are all idiots, but his support is broader. I mean, I was just reading a long piece today about how his support within the Latino community is there. I mean, greater support for Donald Trump than possibly Joe Biden has. So his viability as a candidate, do you think it's the result of some of what you've hinted at, which is that his history it has been whitewashed essentially by media?
I think that it's because he lies. He's always lied. And so lying about, January 6th, people who have been convicted and calling them hostages and that he will free them, referring to them as martyrs and hostages is very dangerous. But also he's lied about, these court legal cases, saying they're witch hunts and saying that Joe Biden is behind it and, it's his Justice Department and Merrick Garland's working for Biden and all this stuff. None of it is true, but it kind of is a very strong argument to low-information voters or people who don't have the time to take an interest. And so, the system, again, is not designed to have people lying so outright. And look, the framers, when they... the people that put this Constitution together, they were in their teens. 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, 22-year-olds. Would you trust people of that age now with such a big job? And so, there should have been revision to prevent this type of thing from happening again. But let me tell you, Donald Trump will lose. There will be another insurrection, and we will be in exactly the same situation in about 9 months' time. And it's very frightening.
It's funny, the polling, something else I was reading was the polling around because this is one of the hot button kind of clickbaity things that came out in recent polling that I think it's 1 in 3 Americans, maybe it's 1 in 4, would be okay with political violence
yes.
in order to, when you really drill down on that stat, it's virtually all MAGA people. So you realize that the tendency, how prone we are to pick up arms, it seems to lean just directly toward this area of support that Trump has.
Look, the MAGA argument at the moment, and I spoke to a Republican friend the other day who said, I know what's going to be happening. I've been listening to a political analyst. He wouldn't tell me which one. He wouldn't tell me where he'd heard it. He said, I heard from a political analyst, and he said that Kamala Harris is going to take over from Joe Biden before the election, and Gavin Newsom is going to come in as the vice president, and then they're going to pardon Joe Biden. And I said, why? Like, what are they going to pardon him for? And he went, all the crimes. Oh. And I said, what crimes? And he said, everything, all of those crimes. But he was completely light on detail. And when I said that is simply not true, he couldn't hear of it. He's so completely brainwashed. And, it's not his fault. Because the far-right media and the right-wing media have been repeating this stuff. There's a whole other universe that you and I might not live in, but it is a parallel universe full of misinformation where I don't think it's 70 million who voted for Donald Trump last time. I think it's, maybe it might be 20 million. But it's still enough people to keep pushing this garbage. And it's circulating on social media. And we've now discovered that Elon Musk is basically in the tank for Donald Trump completely. So, forget anything that's circulating on X or Twitter. The algorithm is designed to help Trump win. We've got the Kremlin, of course. They're desperate for Trump to win. So they're doing all of their stuff, as they did in 2016, to help him get elected. And then, of course, there's the Electoral College, which is stacked against Democrats and pro-Republican, and is the reason that will never be reformed is because Republicans need it, because without it they can't win. So, there's a lot stacked against the Democrats. I hate to say against Joe Biden, because you're not voting for Joe Biden. You are voting for democracy, for the Democrat way of thinking, to be progressive and liberal and inclusive and kind, and because you care about humanity. That's what you're voting for. And it really is a vote between dictatorship and democracy this year. And I just wish people would take it seriously.
You talk about Musk, and I think it's worth noting that Nelson Peltz, he's the guy who just made a play for Disney. He's an activist billionaire. And the Disney board pushed him back, although there are probably going to be some other pretty strong attempts to take over a big media organization like Disney by activist billionaires like Nelson Peltz. Anyway, he was turned back, but he's notable because, and we covered it here on the show, after the insurrection attempt, he swore off Trump. He said, I'm sorry I voted for him. He publicly apologized for his vote and support for Trump. Then, as Nikki Haley and DeSantis, they melted away, and you were left with Trump. He's now organizing for Trump, and he's throwing his billions, or a chunk of his money from his billions, behind Donald Trump. He, along with Musk, there was that meeting that Peltz actually held the meeting of these other billionaires. They want their taxes reduced, and Donald Trump will deliver on that. They're not informed by any other philosophical ideology politically.
It doesn't affect them. It doesn't affect them. If you earn more than $500,000 in this country, you can live a life completely secluded from reality. You can afford the best health care. You can afford vision and dental, which is a bolt-on that I'm not really, I don't have access to. And I recognize that, those people are just on another planet, and then they've completely sold out. And yes, you're right, they sell out to Trump because he reduces their taxes. Ironically, he also raises the debt, and debt has gone up and up and up. National debt under Republican presidents historically, and Democrats have to then try and fix it and undo it. And so really, all the publicity about Republicans being fiscally conservative and they're the ones who understand the economy. It's the wrong way round, Mark, because statistically they are not. They're the ones who run up the big bills because, of course, they don't take in as many tax dollars because they're giving these tax breaks. And then the Democrats have to come in and fix it. And if you look at that historically, if you look at the charts, it's always been that way around.
The last thing I'll just point to is, I think, the greatest chance that the Democrats have in this election that's coming up is associated with women's reproductive rights.
Yes.
If it shows up on enough ballots as an issue state by state, it will bring out those people who want to protect women's reproductive rights. And it will remind people of this Supreme Court, this activist, right-wing, religious Supreme Court. That might be the bizarre chance that Biden really has.
But that's how it played out in the midterms, remember? And it looks like that, because, look, you and I, we do not have a womb between us, but half the population does. And they are reminded every month that they have a womb and that they have, healthcare choices to make. And I think that women, ultimately, who are about 51% of the electorate, will certainly be deciding, and also their partners and feminists like myself, people who advocate for women and for minorities and for the marginalized in society. I don't even get to vote. I'm talking like I get to vote. But the point that I'm making here is that, you are choosing between good and evil. It is that simple. It's the rebellion versus the empire. Choose your goodies and choose your baddies, but that's really what this is down to. And if the media were a little bit more attentive to kind of Project 2025 and all of the published information about what America will look like under a future Trump presidency, then they would be changing their broadcasting tactics, and because it will not benefit them in the long run. And there's this phrase that we used to use in England, America sneezes, the world catches a cold, right? Well, just imagine, because Trump would pull the US out of NATO, Trump would pull the US again out of the Paris Climate Accord, Trump would do everything he can to isolate the United States in such a way that will make goods more expensive and will make the whole world less safe. And they're scrambling in Europe at the moment, absolutely scrambling to try and boost their military stocks, their ammunition. They're setting up their own agreements because smaller countries recognize that they will not have the support of the United States if Trump wins the election.
And just as it pertains to media, and you said, media should take note of it, Trump is coming after the media. Trump has indicated his Justice Department, he would have them look at all of these different activist media outlets, seditious media outlets, however he may term them. If you really get a Justice Department that, joins his jihad, which is what he wants loyalists to occupy all of these arms of government. Media's got a lot to worry about. This place could change pretty quickly, I think. And as you suggested, 2025, the document says it. It states it. It talks about dismantling government and how they're going to do it. And maybe that for next time. But I love our visits. A review for everybody again, because you're doing more and more, Anthony Davis.
Well, find me on the 5 Minute News YouTube channel. That's the best place to get me, or on our Patreon, patreon.com/5 Minute News. Wednesdays, I host Uncovered with Midas Touch. Sundays, I host the Weekend Show with Midas Touch and 5 Minute News. And I'm putting videos out pretty much every day, explainers about this crazy world and how brainwashing through media has affected so many people. And, it's not even about left and right anymore. It's just about, civility, living in a civilized and humane environment and country and fighting for democracy, which is something that both sides should be doing.
Well said, as usual, and you remain my favorite Britisher. I wish you well, and I want to talk about our next cruise together. That would be so much fun.
That would be weird, yeah.
It would be fun, weird. We could live stream it. All right, look, we'll workshop it. Anthony Davis, everybody. Thanks, Anthony.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Yes, thank you very much.
The Mark Thompson Show.
He's the best. He'll be back. He's just so good. So good. Smash the like button like a boss, if you would. It helps us in the YouTube universe if you hit the like button.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Yeah, do it with your iron rod. Now, Kamish and Kim, I will ask you how we are proceeding. I do want to get to Mark Harris because Mark is a 3-time Oscar-winning filmmaker, award-winning author. I also want to get to Kim's news, and then I want to get to the announcement as to who won Mark's Madness. Now, what is the general order of things? We live out loud on this show. I don't mind having this conversation in front of the audience.
I think we might have to bump some of the other stuff for our esteemed guest.
Yeah.
So
All right.
we'll do a supersized news at the top of the next hour, I guess, and then we'll do the announcement of our bracket champion.
Yes. Kim, are you okay with that?
Kim, how are you?
Very, very good with it.
You're very good.
Please
You're a little
proceed.
too good about it, Kim. I'm trying to.
Yeah, almost a little too good.
Yeah.
I think she likes it when we bump her news.
Yeah.
My gosh. All right. That's what we'll do. Supersized news. David Katz, the former federal prosecutor, joins at the top of the next hour as well.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I put it together for a guy who is a 3-time Oscar-winning filmmaker, award-winning author. His latest is a collection of short stories, and I'm very anxious to and intrigued, anxious to talk to him and intrigued by this project. Well, how about it for Mark Harris, everybody? Hey, Mark. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah.
2 marks.
Yeah. 2 marks. It's easy to keep track of us. It's funny. I was reading some stuff from you that had to do with film and film criticism. And then I'm thinking, is this the Mark Harris that I'm talking to, or is this another Mark Harris?
That is another Mark Harris.
Okay.
That's the Mark Harris who used to write for Entertainment Weekly.
That's
Harris,
so funny.
Mark Harris turns out to be a common name. That's why I use Mark Jonathan Harris to distinguish me from the other Marks.
That's great. I just tell me about your career in film. Tell me about your career in show business a little bit, and then I want to get to your latest project.
I started out making documentary films in the 60s during the Vietnam War, the whole political. I was politicized during the 60s. And the first important film that I made was about Cesar Chavez and the Delano grape strike. And I made a number of political films at that time. Then I came to Hollywood, and my career took many ups and downs. I had started out as a newspaper reporter, and when it was difficult to raise money for to make documentaries, I went back to journalism. I was a contributing editor to New West magazine, wrote for a lot of magazines. And then my documentary career picked up again. Early on in my career, I won an Oscar when I was very young. And I thought, this is easy. It turned out I misjudged how difficult it was. And it was 30 years before I won another Oscar. And then the third Oscar came 3 years later. By the third Oscar, I thought, maybe I do have a career as a documentary filmmaker.
The first film was the Chavez film. The second two films were associated with what?
The Holocaust. Actually, the first film that won the Academy Award was of a film called The Redwoods, and it was made for the Sierra Club to help establish a Redwood National Park. So those were the days, early environmental movement. Then later on, I did some historical films, and now I'm actually back to making social political documentaries. I made a film called Breaking Point: The War for Democracy in Ukraine, which I co-directed with Oles Sanyan, a Ukrainian director. And my most recent film was called Foster. It was about the foster care system in Los Angeles. It was on HBO.
Oh, wow. That's just terrific. I think I saw your Breaking Point film. Was that a Netflix film, or where was that? What was it?
It was shown theatrically, and then it was on Peacock.
Peacock. Okay, maybe I saw. I remember it had to do with Ukraine.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah. I thought I'd seen that, but this is, of course, and this is the idea that you hear about these things, you get interested, and you go back and check these things out. So it's really great that that your work is celebrated the way it was, because clearly you have a real. And I think the Holocaust stuff that you have done, some of these stories, one of them was with the Kindersport, where the children are put on a train. Isn't that what happens?
It was British rescue mission 9 months prior to the start of World War II. Britain was the only country willing to take in children. They took in 10,000 unaccompanied minors from Czechoslovakia, Austria, and Germany. These were predominantly Jewish children. Their parents put them on a train because send them into the arms of strangers to a country whose language they didn't speak, to people they didn't know. And most of the parents never saw them again.
So incredible, and not that long ago,
Oh, and the film, that's the film that's probably I'm best known for, and it was chosen by the Library of Congress for the National Film Registry, which means that it will be preserved for a long time.
Tell me about these short stories that you've written now. This is a collection of different tales. Right.
It's when you make a film, some of these stories grew out of my experience making films. One of the stories is called Mute, and it's about a father coping or trying to come to grips with the fact that his son is autistic and that is not the son he imagined to have. And that grew out of a long experience creating a website on autism that I produced while I was teaching at the University of Southern California. It was a 5-year project funded by the Agency for Health Research and Quality in Washington to try to present videos of the best evidence-based treatments for autism. And I was still haunted by these issues. And these are you can't tell all the stories you want in film. And that's one of the stories. Another story came out of the work that I did in foster care. It's like when you go to sleep at night, the stories that still haunt you that you haven't been able to communicate. I found that fiction and writing short stories was the best way to communicate them.
It's interesting to hear a filmmaker speak about the fact that the written word oftentimes can tell stories and relate details and perhaps texture of an issue better than a documentary film can. And yet a documentary film is so wonderful in just that verite. I mean, in witnessing.
I mean, that's true. The difference in writing fiction is easier to get into the minds of your characters. In film, we understand what people think through what we see them do and through their actions. But in fiction, you can actually enter someone's mind, their thought processes, in a way that it's more difficult to do in film.
So I've only got another minute or so, but I wanted to ask you about the state of documentary film. This is great that this is the book, and we'll have a link to the book. And I'm just so excited for you, Mark Jonathan Harris. You're obviously such a gifted, you're a gifted guy. I mean, you're on the right side of every issue, and you actually can bring them to life in different ways in different media. But with all of that said, so we'll have a link to it. But now I want to ask you about the state of documentary filmmaking now, because I feel as though it's entered another renaissance. And I wonder, as a documentary filmmaker, how you feel about that.
I think that's definitely true. I think aesthetically, documentaries are better than they've ever been. There are more options. Filmmakers are using more techniques. They're using animation, recreation. They're using special effects. They're using all the tools of cinema to communicate what the experiences that they've gone through. And the market constantly changing. If you had asked me this 3 or 4 years ago, I would say, yeah, this is the best time economically for documentaries. And in fact, documentaries shown at Sundance and then sold for $20 million. But now there's been, in the last year or so, where the streaming services are reevaluating their financial model, there's been cutbacks. You can still sell a documentary if it's true crime, if it's celebrity, it's about music, but a political documentary is a little more difficult these days. The pendulum is constantly going back and forth. I'm hoping, because I have some projects that I would love to get funded, I'm hoping that the appetite for political documentaries will again return, especially at this moment in time.
How much is, and now I'm way over time, but let me ask this one last question. You talked about funding, it made me think of it. How much is it on average to produce a documentary film?
It depends. An hour for PBS these days might be around $750,000, but the budgets go up. Spending over $1 million to $2 million is not unheard of these days.
When we see an hour of Frontline, let's say, that's a documentary series. It's usually, they can do that. They bring it in just under $1 million an hour.
Yeah, I would say so. I don't know their exact budget, but yeah.
Yeah, but you'd say that just as representative.
Right, I'm doing a film now for PBS, and the budget's around $750,000.
Yeah. It's funny that that it's hard. We're used to these big budget. You're used to hearing. You get sticker shock when you look at some of these budgets, and still these small documentary films struggle to get the funding necessary. And the stuff you're talking about, and the film's focus, in your case, is always just so relevant, so important. And yet,
I think in the era of superhero movies, I think there is a hunger for films about real world and about the issues that affect us all.
Albert, put up if you would please, the cover of the book. Again, it's called Misfits. These are short stories by Mark Jonathan Harris, and the Oscar winner, documentary filmmaker and thinker, professor. I can't wait to get into them, and I can't wait to go back and see some of your work, which I will do.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Mark. Pleasure to meet you.
Yes, right back at you. Thank you, Mark Jonathan Harris.
Okay.
The Mark Thompson Show.
That is a real cool dude. That is a real great guy. Glad we had a chance to meet. All right, Kim's News, and then David Katz. Now, I will, again, with this fork in the road, ask you, Albert, how do you want to do this in terms of the announcement of the winner of Mark's Madness? Maybe that should be done now, or do you want to, I feel like I want to celebrate the winner on some level.
Yeah, we should do it following the news. We'll do it
right.
News and winner, and then we have David Katz for.
All right,
Albert, thank you.
All right, news, winner, and David Katz. That's how we have it. Smash the like button like a boss.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Wow, what a day it's been so far, and it's not over.
No.
The second hour awaits, but first, Kim's News. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister, and this report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Wanted to share this headline with you guys. See if I can't get it. I have to take the picture down in order to get that up. But the President Biden just got off the phone with the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and apparently is voicing his displeasure with the death of civilians there and the humanitarian situation in Gaza. So President Biden spoke with Benjamin Netanyahu on a call today. The call reportedly lasts about a half an hour. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said the president told Netanyahu airstrikes that killed 7 World Central Kitchen aid workers were unacceptable. So that is the latest from that situation.
Well, he's getting tremendous political pressure, and there's just, the basic humanity of the situation demands that he do something. It's, I think it's noteworthy because, for a lot of reasons, of course, but not the least of which is he's been a strong supporter of Israel, and I think he would still consider himself a strong supporter of Israel, and he is someone with an old school sense of allegiance to the democracy in the region, But Benjamin Netanyahu is a toxic figure. He needs to be removed. And when I say that, I mean by his own people. And the electorate in Israel is ready to do that. If you look at what's happening on the street in Israel, they are not cool with what's going on in Gaza. They're not cool with the strategy. He's also paying a price probably for October 7th and the fact that that happened and that there were intelligence reports and rumblings that might happen. So I think when you put that all together, Netanyahu politically is no longer a viable figure in Israel. And by the way, because of that, Netanyahu realizes that, and he leans in even harder into the Gaza situation. So there's a lot of politics, and there's also the humanitarian crisis as it unfolds there. It's a pretty ugly situation. So you're right. That is big news.
In other news, Fani Willis coming out successful today, I guess you could say. A judge in Georgia says alleged comments by former President Trump are not protected by the First Amendment. The judge adding the alleged statements were made in furtherance of criminal activity. Trump's attempt to have his election interference case, in which he's charged with interference, was his trying to have it dismissed, but his attempt to do that was ultimately dismissed. In San Francisco, a public safety measure is set to take place. And this is one that was approved by voters. They approved Prop E in March, allowing police officers to access modern technology and tools like drones and license plate readers to better equip them on the job. The measure also changes rules to increase the number of officers on the streets. The measure goes into effect April 12th. Ahead of that, Mayor London Breed says the latest crime numbers this year are improving. In the first quarter of the year, January 1st through March 31st, property crime, she said, is down 32%, violent crime down 14% compared to the first quarter of 2023. This story, it's a Mark Thompson caper, is what I'll say. It's a heist. Yes, it is. It's one of the largest heists ever, is what they're saying, at least in this particular area. So this happened in the Los Angeles area, and now the FBI and the LAPD are investigating what they call one of the largest cash heists in the city's history.
Yeah, I'm glad you're doing this story, because I saw it. I had it slugged for law and disorder, but this is unbelievable.
Oh,
There's never been anything like this.
No. I'm glad you're doing
you?
it. No. There's one less thing I have to do. Go for it.
Oh, well, there you go. Well, okay, so apparently, as much as $30 million was stolen from a San Fernando Valley money storage facility. It happened the night of Easter Sunday.
I didn't even know there were money storage facilities. I mean, you understand, this is not $30 million in some kind of cyber crime. It's $30 million cash,
Yes.
pallets of money.
My favorite kind of pallet, a pallet of money. So it happened the night of Easter Sunday at an
Saudi Arabia pays cash.
at an unnamed facility in Sylmar, which is in the San Fernando Valley. Of course, it's going to be an unnamed facility. They're not going to slap a sign on it that says cash money here. No. But this is where cash from businesses across the region is handled and it's stored. See, I would think they would take it right to a bank. But apparently, no. They take it to the money facility.
Well, I mean, this is a place that, people come in and out of a bank.
Yeah.
This is a more secure facility, Kim. This is a place that's locked down because all that cash is in there.
Burglars gained access to the building. They entered the vault without even setting off alarms, and investigators...
This is screaming inside job.
Isn't it?
Oh, my God. Yeah.
Why are you yelling?
It's absolutely inside job.
Investigators believe it's a sophisticated group based on their ability to evade detection. One area of focus for the FBI investigation, whether the group had inside knowledge of that facility. Inside
yes, of course
job
they
indeed.
did. What do you think these guys? Oh, my God. They're just such geniuses, the way they avoided setting off any alarms. No, they're not. They got one or two Confederates to go with them and to finally make this grab.
I was talking to Albert before the show, and I said, how many big rigs do you need to haul away $30 million in cash? What does that even look like?
So here is a really important point that Kim is making. One of the big issues when you steal that kind of cash money, again, not a cyber crime, is the weight of all the money. And the reason I know this is because I narrated that show about heists. I think it was called Super Heists. And the issue that a lot of these big heists had when they were getting cash of the sort that we're talking about was two things: the weight of the money and how much time it takes to load the money into bags and to wheelbarrows. You have to transfer that money physically. So it's funny you say that, because that really is one of the huge issues when you're trying to steal that much cash.
Well, and so you would think that if you had to haul away that much money and you had to have big rigs or large vehicles or whatever, that even if the alarms didn't go off, someone would see all the trucks, right? How does this even happen?
Well, I mean, I think it's behind when you say someone would see, I mean, it's behind a gated area. I don't know that it's seen by neighbors or anything, but I mean, there would be security cameras, but I'm sure they've disabled them. They know all the serial numbers, maybe. I don't know. That would be the way to Did the bags have dollar signs on them? Blue Spark wants to know. Yeah, like the old Batman series, right?
Yeah, money's in here. That's exactly right. Well, from incredibly sophisticated to, yeah, not so sophisticated at all. And I have a video I have to show you. You guys are going to love this. This guy, let's see if I can show it to you. This guy decides, apparently, he's going to be a porch pirate kind of thief, right? And so he decides that he's going to wear a trash bag to steal things. And so here he is stealing things. Oops, I'm sorry. Let's see if I don't know if I have it. I'm sorry. Hold on.
I'll try to grab it, Kim.
I have it. Wait, I have it. Okay, here it is.
Try to full screen it. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. You can see him. There he is, moving around in his trash bag. Look at that. He's going to scoot up there. He's going to steal something. Porch pirate. There he goes. He gets it.
Ooh, it's a wild idea, but it just might work.
He's a porch pirate dressed in a garbage bag. I mean, hey, I guess if you don't want your picture up on the camera, right? On the Ring camera.
Typically what people do is they just throw the hoodie top over themselves and they put on a mask. That's it. I mean, this guy really went for the full,
Didn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, it was a lot of trouble to get that video up, but I think it was very worth it. This thief disguised as a trash bag caught on camera stealing a package from a home in Sacramento. The homeowner had received notification the package had been delivered and was surprised when, of course, it wasn't on the porch when he got home. And the door camera footage shows a person crouched underneath this black hefty bag, creeping toward the front door and stealing the package, and then creeping away dressed as a bag.
He did get away with it. I mean, we can make fun of it, but the guy did get away with it. I mean, I don't know.
Oh my, takes all kinds. I mean, really, from a $30 million heist to a hefty bag garbage heist. I don't know.
Yeah.
This report.
That's the yin and the yang of it. You're right. We cover it all.
This report sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. I just got my tea in my little cup here, and oh my gosh, it's good. We just got some that arrived on the porch during the Mark Thompson show with the tea bags and the tea and everything else. And it's so exciting when that happens. So check out CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. And at checkout, make sure you enter the code, the special Mark Thompson 10% discount code, Mark T, all together at checkout. You get your discount, and then you get your coffee and your tea, and life is glorious once again. I'm Kim McAllister. This is The Mark Thompson Show.
Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson?
Who's Mark Thompson?
The Mark Thompson Show.
We are in the middle of a great ride, everybody. It's our Thursday show. We will talk to David Katz, who is the former federal prosecutor, now working at the defense side of the table. We'll talk to him in just a moment because I think the situation with that Florida case, with the Trump Florida case, is unbelievable. But the commish of Mark's Madness is here with us today. Albert, who, it was an odd Mark's Madness because, as I recall, Albert, and again, if you're just joining us, Mark's Madness is a competition that we do every year in which we pit sound drops up against each other. We use sound drops on this show, and we have since our radio days. But anyway, point is that Albert put this all together. It's a lot of work to put this together, and he did do that work. And then this is the odd part. He wasn't here for the start of the tournament. He had to join from Taiwan. And, now Taiwan's in the news for other reasons. But Albert, you really have, you've stepped up. And now we're lucky that we have you here for the announcement of the champion. In the first hour, you did announce that 30 to 35% idiots beat out Chit for the title. And again, that was
there's always been in this country 30 to 35% idiots.
That is the sound bite, the drop that won Mark's Madness. Chit was number 2. Now, Albert, did you compute all of the brackets and the points, and maybe you can give us a sense of how it was computed or what was important and who won?
Yeah, so we were expecting probably a group of champions this year, but that is actually not the case. We have one standalone champion.
Oh,
Wow, that is extraordinary.
What?
This is unreal. And I haven't looked. I don't know who it is. This
And
is very exciting. So
And it's Sally Costa. So
Sally
congrats.
Costa. Come on, Sally Costa. Wow. Sally Costa. What can we say, Albert? I mean, can you give us a sense for the genius that is Sally Costa, Albert? What did she do?
Well, first she started off with picking the eventual champion, which is 30 to 35% idiots here. So
And that put her in pretty rarefied company because not a lot of people did pick 30 to 35% idiots.
Yeah, but she also had Chit in the finals too. So she,
wow.
I mean, just to have those two correct predictions will get you very far in any bracket.
Sally Costa. Now, it's interesting. Sally, has Sally shown up in our chat, Kim? I don't remember seeing her name in the chat.
I've seen a Sally before, but I don't know if she's here today. I don't know.
Anyway, my point is, there's certain people who populate the chat every day, and we sort of are used to them being very active in the community. I don't know if Sally is one of them, though. I don't recognize her name as being active that way. But I salute and am humbled by how amazing she was and how she crushed Mark's Madness. It's pretty amazing, Albert. Yeah. Don't you agree?
Clearly, she is a listener, a viewer, a listener, because she knows the show and she's correctly predicted. She was our Katsadamas for this tournament.
Yeah, look at all the love for Sally. Put up some of that love.
In the rich tradition of the show, you get nothing.
It is true. Sadly, Sally, I don't know what we have for you. We are working on...
A new car!
No, we're working on a new car.
No, I don't think we're getting her a new car.
No.
I think the bottom of her bracket here is probably the most impressive. It's just seeing all the green here. So the first half of the tournament, she had a couple wrong in the first round, and then she was just almost impeccable for the rest of the way.
Wow.
So very,
there she is, Sally. Come on, Sally. You are the queen of Mark's Madness and a $50 super chat.
Big shout out.
Wait,
Yay me. Yay. 30 to 35% idiots. I love Chit too, but this is just so apropos. Thanks for the fun drops and the fun and informative shows. Love you guys. Sally C., the winner of Mark's Madness. Wow. Wow.
I love how she gives us a prize, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. We have to pull something together.
There's never been anything like this.
We have to pull something together for her, Albert.
Little gift basket, maybe something all personal, so one of a kind items.
Yeah. Since it's just you, Sally, we can pull something together. She should get an autographed picture of MT. Well, I think that wouldn't probably float her boat.
There's a lot of choices. Just turn around and grab some merch off the shelves, and
we'll grab some of the merch.
Yeah.
Here
one
is
of the
one
panels.
of the
We could grab one of the panels.
One of the panels are falling on their own, so you could grab one of those. The bottle opener is it's a fine item, an underappreciated item. It's magnetized, which is why it sits up there like this, and it does have our logo right there on front. This is, I think, a super cool thing, and I feel like Sally should get one of those. We're just so excited, Sally. I'm so impressed by what you did. You know, I mean, it's not easy. So, gift basket of Coachella Valley coffee and wine.
Nice. Yeah,
that's an idea too. Wow. Will Jim Avila be coming on the show to enjoy his virtual victory ticker tape parade and adoration from the MT community? Well, first of all, adoration is a ding word. Secondly, Sally is a bot. The pillow guy told me. LOL. Just kidding. Way to go, Sally, says Luis. Yeah, big shout out. Sally, we cannot applaud you enough. You're amazing. Well, actually, Jim Avila did you send him the
I sent him
link?
the link. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he did say he's very much aware that he was his drop, that 30 to 30.
There's always been in this country 30 to 35% idiots.
That is Jim Avila, former White House correspondent, the former national and senior correspondent at ABC News, who was on our show as a regular for years. And that was a comment that he made. And that, again, is what won Mark's Madness. So we sent him a link. He's very much aware that he's the Cinderella story. So it's a really cool cool thing. But he said I might come on to cut down the net, which is what you do when you. Yeah. Sally is a huge soda. Way to go, Sally, says M. Oak. Yeah, big shout out. Right. Wow. Well, this is a lot of fun. And Andrew Peters, who is our designated troll. He's the official troll of the Mark Thompson Show. Leave it to a commie like Mark, where you pay if you win something.
Have you ever been a member of the Chinese Communist Party?
Yeah. There you go. Very well done, Andrew. The chit entry was unfairly emasculated, says
What?
PT. Wow, that's wild. Emasculated. Strong ding word. If you had left the shut the Marky mouth in with it, Kim's entry would have won. Yeah, I mean, PT, you might be right about that. But that's not the way the drop lived. Like we keep the drops the way they are. We don't create new drops for the tournament. So, but you're right. It was born of that moment. So, I also want to follow up on this. So Sally, again, we love you. We'll get something. Al, will you make sure that we get something organized?
I will reach out Sally to get your contact.
We just need her address, and I'll send her something. So
congratulations, and thanks everyone for playing.
It really was a great tournament, a lot of fun. Next year, maybe more people even involved in the brackets, and Mark's Madness was so much fun. Thank you all for participating. Loved it. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
We do have our David Katz is in the green.
Oh, he's ready? Okay, good. I was killing time, but I don't need to do that now. So, all right. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
He's the former federal prosecutor. Now he works the defense side of the table, and you see him on London radio and television, on New York radio and television, and San Francisco radio and television, and Los Angeles radio. He's a media monster, both nationally and internationally, when it comes to decoding the very complicated legal stuff that is going on in America. I'm talking about Supreme Court cases, and of course, I'm talking about Trump cases. Without any further delay, here he is, David Katz, everyone.
Hi, great to be with you. I hope
at
I'm
you,
coming in
all ready
well.
for
I'm
prime.
actually in New York City right now. Do I look okay? It sounds
Yes,
okay?
you look great.
Terrific.
Yeah, you look and sound great. You're ready for prime time. So, David, I want to ask you first about this Florida judge. The judge, Aileen Cannon, we've talked about this case a lot, you and I, during the many months that it has sort of dragged on. She seems clearly to be, she's a Trump appointee, but she seems to clearly be delaying this case in every way possible. But some of the more recent delays now, these very recent delays, seem kind of absurd from a legal standpoint, and that's what's being called out by Jack Smith. I wonder if you could speak to the absurdity, how absurd it is. Or you could just give us a framework as to how to evaluate this.
Well, they are kind of absurd, Mark, which is what the commentators are saying. The idea of the presidential personal records, which Trump is making, is so far out that you think that she would have rejected it. Basically, what Trump is saying, and it's what they call a post hoc argument. It's something that has no contemporaneous record. It's after the fact. And so the theory is after the fact, and therefore there could be, I guess, facts to back it up, but there are also no facts to back it up, which is why it's so precarious and why you think it would have been thrown out as being unsubstantiated in both fact and law. Trump is actually arguing, and this is about the first time that he's argued this, Mark, about a year after he left office, that he made some of these documents unclassified and he designated them as his personal records. And so his argument goes that he just took personal records with him. Now, Reagan was allowed to take, under the Presidential Records Act, some notes that he had himself written. This is totally distinguishable, Mark. It has no basis at all. These are not personal notes that Trump made. What these are military intelligence reports top secret national security documents that were generated by the military and the intelligence community and shown to Trump because Trump was the holder of the office at the time. Once he's no longer holder of the office, it's absolutely clear that these are government records, and nothing that he could have done would have made them personal. So to argue now that they're personal because some right-wing legal scholar came up with this theory for him a year after he left office and he got caught with his pants down. Oh, these were personal pants, blah, blah, blah. He got caught with his pants down. And not only that, remember, this case is so open and shut, Mark. He put these lawyers and others up to lie for him, to misrepresent the situation to the government, according to the allegations. They certified that there was nothing of national security documents there. And then when they went in on a search warrant, which was granted by a neutral magistrate judge in the Southern District of Florida, not Cannon, but a neutral magistrate district judge, the FBI went in there, the national security people went in there, and they found over 30 national security documents. They probably found more, but they're going to trial on about 30 of the top secret national security documents that had these red and gold bindings. So the idea that these were personal documents of Trump is absurd and factually unsupported. And she even recognized that at one of the very few public hearings that we've had in that case. Cannon actually recognized and was very skeptical about the argument. Then about a week or two after that, she proposed this jury instruction. This was also alarming to people because why is she getting into jury instructions? They're usually negotiated a week or two before trial. By the way, she still hasn't set a trial date. So here's something that's usually done a week or two before trial. There's a non-existent trial date with this judge. And suddenly she's talking about jury instructions, which were, suppose I were to give this instruction, that they were personal, that they were just documents of Trump's, then what should I go on to put in the jury instruction? And they were alarmed that she was taking this seriously. And I think that they realized that now they have a hook to go to the appellate court and to ask, number one, that the appellate court reverse that ruling, reverse the idea of giving such a jury instruction, which is based on no facts or law, but also to order her removed from the case and have the case assigned to a different judge. So that's where that is right now. And the problem is that if a judge does something wrong in a ruling on a motion, the government can appeal in this situation. They don't have to wait for the end of the case. They can appeal. What she's done is slow walked ruling. And can the stall protect her from the writ of mandamus or the appeal that the government is going to file? And what Jack Smith is doing now, and it's very clear from the special prosecutor's latest papers, Mark, is that he's setting things up to go to the 11th Circuit and appeal her or file a writ of mandamus against her. And one last thing, I've actually handled one of those in the government, for the government, in a high-profile case. So I'm very familiar with these writs of mandamus and what's required for them.
So this is interesting because you've kind of suggested that you're not only appealing this decision that's made along the way, but you're also suggesting that the door could be open to actually initiating some kind of replacement of this judge on this case. Those are two different things.
They are, Mark, and either by way of the writ of mandamus or the appeal, a different judge could be designated. It's unusual. The general presumption is that the judge who has the case, has taken an oath to be fair and impartial. They are supposed to be able to be big enough and in heart and mind that they can be reversed and still be unbiased. People have real doubts about whether she is that model of a United States district or appellate judge that can say, you know what, but the mind is like a parachute, no good if it doesn't open at the right time. And the presumption is that all federal judges' minds open at the right time, and even having been slapped down by the Court of Appeals, and even if you're the lawyer for the person who's gotten that judge slapped down by the Court of Appeals, the judge will be very fair to the issues, the judge will be very fair to you, and the judge will be very fair to your client. And all of that people are wondering about now, because remember, she's the one who got involved in that search warrant at Mar-a-Lago that I was talking about, where Judge Cannon was selected after Trump ran up the road to get her on the case. And then she issued these orders about the search. Remember, this is the one who had the special master. The former federal judge was supposed to review everything before the FBI and the national security people could see it. And there was no precedent for it. It's like, wait a second. That happens in certain cases. It happens, Mark, with attorney-client privilege material. They bring in a taint team. But the way she was bringing in a taint team, the way she was bringing in a special master, and then she stuck to it. So she did it twice. She got reversed twice by the 11th Circuit. And that's when people started to say, you know what, is she that model of a fair federal judge? Or is she a Trumpy lawyer that he put on the court who's doing obeisance to Trump?
And when you say put on the court, this is supposed to be a random process by which this case just ended up before this judge. Do you believe that it really was completely random?
I do believe it was completely random. People used to have questions about that, used to go into court and they actually picked the judge's name out of a barrel. Now it's done by computer and you can't sort of watch it done. I mean, you could always fix the barrel, right? But you would actually stand there with your client. And there's a great story. The case where I worked on the writ of mandamus involved John DeLorean, the automaker who got the famous cocaine charges against him, of which he was ultimately acquitted. But he had what we prosecutors, and I was a prosecutor in that office along with Adam Schiff and a couple of other notable figures at that time. And I worked on the writ of mandamus on that case. But he got what we considered in the U.S. Attorney's Office in Los Angeles, one of the best judges in the court for him. In the same way that Cannon seems like the best judge on the court. We thought that it happened completely at random. But I remember the day, if I ever wrote something about it, and I never did, I was going to call my book "Good Pick, John," because the DeLorean's lawyers, who went on to be pretty famous after the acquittal, one of the lawyers stood there right next to John. I was in the courtroom, and he turned to John and he said to him, "Good pick, John," meaning this is like "Good pick, Donald." And I think it was a pick, but the error that I think in judgment here by the prosecution, and I sing the praises of Jack Smith for all that he's done, the hard work he and his team have done. But I don't understand why he took a 1 in 3 chance of getting her by picking that district to file in. The way he filed it, he had a chance of 1 in 3, and he didn't have a chance of 1 in 20, but he had a chance of 1 in 3 of getting her.
Yeah, you talked about that before, and we have spoken of this, and you know how I feel about this case. I really thought this was the open shut case. Slam dunk case. It's all so obvious. You don't need any knowledge of law. You don't need any knowledge of finance. You don't need any knowledge of any election propriety. It's simple. The guy jacked these documents. They're military documents, top secret stuff, along with thousands of other documents. He moved them to his personal residence. Then he evaded a subpoena and actively evaded the opportunities that the government was trying to give him to return those documents. It's all so straightforward. So you almost need a fix-in type situation like this for Trump to evade justice. And it looks as though he's gotten this. Now, I want to ask you about the Jack Smith part. So Jack Smith has clearly in frustration. I mean, at some point, as you've sort of suggested, he's saying, hey, we've got to now appeal this decision. Can you handicap that process both in terms of time and also in terms of success possibilities?
If the 11th Circuit gets it, right, if they understand that this is a stall, which is not in keeping with the federal rules. Yes, judges, district judges, trial judges have a great deal of discretion over their calendar. But that doesn't mean that if a judge is abusing it, this would be an abuse of discretion to slow walk this case as much as it is. Now, there are issues of national security. There are some tough issues in the case. There are a lot of motions that are pending. So the one side of it is that, look, it may be that Jack Smith wants this case to go to trial, and so does the public. And it's important for the public that this case reach a verdict before the November election. Having said that, it's rather accelerated. If you compare it with other national security cases with a lot of documents and a lot of issues like this, the case is not moving that slow. And so that's going to be the argument on one side. But if they get the idea that this case is being stalled, and obviously Judge Cannon is trying to, if you believe that she's trying to stall it, she's trying to stall it in a clever enough way. She's thinking about, will the 11th Circuit reverse me and replace me? But so they have the discretion, Mark, to do that. And in terms of the handicapping it, if she doesn't do anything, they're going to follow their writ of mandate, which is basically saying an appeal doesn't solve this problem. She hasn't issued a ruling. It's not something that we can file a successful appeal about, or maybe we can't appeal at all. But this is an extraordinary situation. It's rare. And look at what's going on. This is a clear abuse of discretion. It needs to be dealt with now. It can't be dealt with by a later appeal. It can't be dealt with by a final judgment. The need here, the public interest here, is to go to trial quickly. And if they get that argument, then what they would do is they would reverse it. They would replace her. There would be another judge picked at random. They wouldn't pick the judge. You pick it randomly again. So I guess it would be one of, if there are 3 judges possible in this case, it would be one of the other 2. One of those 2 would get it at random. And if that district judge then got the idea that this case needed to move, they would move it fast. And then if they move it too fast, that'll be Trump's issue on appeal. If he gets convicted, he'll argue that it was moved too fast. He didn't have enough time. And that's, I think, a very compelling argument for the average lawyer. 1 or 2 lawyers are defending somebody. There are limited resources. With Trump's resources and Trump's lawyers, I don't think it would be reversed. In other words, if he's found guilty and he's convicted and sentenced, and he's looking to the Court of Appeals to then spare him because he had too speedy a trial, his lawyers didn't have the time to get ready for it, to file the motions. In his particular case, with his number of lawyers and his huge resources that he can spend, if he says it was too much for my 4 lawyers, they're going to say, why didn't you have 10 lawyers? You could have afforded it. Put 1 on each motion, get this case ready for trial.
In a home run move, true or false, former federal prosecutor David Katz, Aileen Cannon, judge in the Florida case, could dismiss the charges against Donald Trump, say that there's not a case here?
Here's how this works. Once jeopardy attaches, you can't have double jeopardy. You can't be put in double jeopardy. And therefore, if the trial goes along and she says, I've heard the evidence and I'm finding you not guilty, and I'm pretty sure this is going to be a jury trial, but she can also overrule the jury. She can dismiss the case. There's certain ways. We had a judge like this in Los Angeles when I was there, and he never did that in one of my cases. But I heard, from other assistant U.S. attorneys that, the jury would be seated, jeopardy would have attached, and he would dismiss the case right then. At the very end of the government's case, the defense makes a motion. It's very standard for judgment of acquittal. And they say, look, here are the 4 elements, and here's why the government hasn't presented a case in its case in chief of why they're entitled to a guilty verdict, because they haven't proven one of the elements. The classic is you're trying to show a federal bank robbery. You never showed that the bank was federally insured. You forget to put in the evidence that the bank was federally insured. You rest, and the judge says, well, wait a second, I'm granting that motion for judgment of acquittal. Or at the end of the case, the judge finds a reason to either acquit or dismiss the case. The law, at least at that time, was that the judge gotcha. He got the prosecutor. The judge managed to do something that was unreviewable on appeal, and the defendant just walked, and you could never get him or her again because of double jeopardy. People are worried that Trump will get into some situation like that, and Cannon will spring him by her ruling once jeopardy is attached, once the trial has gotten rolling. And that's the real thing to worry about. That's the jury instruction thing. She gives that jury instruction, right? The jury instruction is totally wrong. They try to mandamus it. There's not time. To some extent, if she's being really coy and clever, that was not a very coy, clever move, because that jury instruction may have given Smith the hook to get her reversed and to get her replaced in the case. So you have to wait and see on that. But the real fear, let's assume she gives a terrible jury instruction. You can't do anything about it. The jury gets the jury instruction and they vote not guilty. This is the rarity. Some judge is trying to, put their finger on a scale of justice, and in a way that helps the defendant. But that's what they're worried about here with her and with Trump. And they want the trial to start. Now, I guess your viewers will also have this question. Can the trial even start that fast? There's 70 days under the Speedy Trial Act. So if the 11th Circuit reversed and replaced her and got a new judge, and they went to trial within 70 days saying, look, you guys have all had enough time. But it's sort of a Herculean task for the new judge. There's 12 or 13 motions pending. There's not just this one. There's motions over discovery. There's all these national security issues. And so it's fraught. It's really difficult. So if you want Katsadamas, this case does not go to trial before the election.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly what it appears she's been successful in doing, is dragging her feet on this. And it is the case is breaking news that she has, she's not going to throw out the case. That is to say, she's not going to dismiss the charges that Trump hoarded classified documents right now, but she still can retain that, as you say, when they impanel a jury, then she could dismiss the charges then. And then that is, as you've also just said, that's when jeopardy has kicked in, or whatever your terminology was, meaning you can't try him again for this once it's been dismissed.
Right. That's what we call jeopardy attaching. Now, it may be that, it's not done in a way that really does protect it from an appeal, and that there would be some basis to.
Oh, we lose David Katz. That's too bad. That's this is a really good visit with David Katz. I hate that, Albert. You know what I mean? I love. We had a really.
Someone might have called him on his end.
Oh, on his phone or whatever. Yeah.
Like.
Because it was a little ding dong noise. Ding dong.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
He did mention Katsadamas. He did make his predictions.
Yes, Katsadamas did speak. He said that
Albert, thank you.
It will be election first. The election will beat this trial to the finish line. There it is. Katsadamas says documents case likely will not go to trial before the election. So,
which I mean, you think that's important information for voters to have? I mean, did the guy that you're thinking of voting for steal national security documents and wave them around in front of people, or worse?
This is why it's important. Not because people need to make up their minds about Donald Trump. I mean, it seems as though if you follow this at all, the situation is clear, crystal clear, that, he was a lawless president who grabbed all these documents. These are top secret military documents. He hid them from those who were there to get these documents back on the part of the federal government. They gave him every opportunity to do it peacefully. They didn't raid his place. They sent him a letter. He delayed a year, blah, 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 blah. They issued the subpoena. They warned about the subpoena, etc. He moved the documents. He actively evaded the searches. But here's why it's important. So everybody's made up their mind about it. Whatever. The Trumpies, he can do nothing wrong. He's their Jesus, right? Those people who are the Trump haters, he can do nothing right. And the evidence is clear. But I would suggest any objective party who's looking at this with any degree of objectivity can see this guy is absolutely guilty. That's why this is a slam dunk case. Of all the cases, that's why this is slam dunk. But why is it important then? It's important not because it's revealing something about Trump that you didn't know, or that anyone didn't know, or like, gosh, when they put it that way, I guess I can't vote for him. The people who are going to vote for him are going to vote for him. It's important because if he's found guilty of this, he cannot be president. It's a felony. And someone who is found guilty of a felony can't be president.
Is that true?
Let's ask David Katz. David, I was just saying.
I'm really sorry about that.
That's okay. I just made a sweeping statement, and you can tell me whether it's true or not. Kim was saying, well, gee, this case it's too bad that it's not going to make it to the finish line before the election. And I was saying, yeah, that's what David is predicting. I said, but this case is very important for a reason that has nothing to do with any revelations about Trump or anything that you're going to learn about Trump as a voter. It has an important part of it because if Trump is found guilty of this, and this is whether you can tell me this is true or not, if he's found guilty of this, he cannot be president of the United States. Am I right? Isn't it a felony?
No, but the fact that you're convicted of a felony really doesn't matter. What would have mattered if the Senate had voted with about 12 Republicans who voted to acquit him in the Senate and not to convict him. Then they could have gone on after conviction on impeachment. And that's not criminal conviction. So that's no double jeopardy. Trump can still stand trial on all these trials. But to find him guilty in the impeachment sense, then they would have gone on to the clause of the Constitution that says, and therefore disqualify him from office. And that's the way that you get disqualified. They were 10 Republican senators or so not voting to convict him in the Senate, that would have disqualified him. But no, you can run from prison, you could serve from prison. There was a jocular, I hope, article talking about him being convicted here in New York City and being at Rikers Island and being president. And, he would just see, I guess, foreign diplomats and heads of state at Rikers. They'd be, they'd go through the magnetometer, they'd be patted down, and then Macron would talk to him about whatever they needed to talk about at Rikers Island. I mean, it's so absurd.
So just to clarify, you can be a felon and be the president of the United States, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, they did. I mean, and David K. Johnston's talked about this before with Eugene Debs being, the Socialist Party guy back in the 1920s who was wrapped up. But I was under the impression that those were state charges. But clearly I'm wrong. So so this is the bizarre, again, part of American government. You can't vote if you're a felon, but you can become president if you're a felon.
It's an oxymoron, isn't it? It's a moronic oxymoron.
It really
Do we
is.
to talk about the New York case?
Yes, I would just. Katz, you dropped out. I wanted to revisit what I just said, and I'm glad we did because I was wrong. So I'm glad we. Now let's talk about the New York case, which is proceeding.
Well, it looks like that case really is going to go to trial. There's going to be jury selection. Trump has now argued that the judge should be recused twice. I don't see that happening. He seems like a very able judge. And he's argued now that under the president, this is a different thing, his presidential immunity, the case that's going to be heard in the U.S., the issue that's going to be heard in the U.S. Supreme Court in late April. And will probably get decided in late May or maybe not until June. And then hopefully, because that will be an argument that will fail to preclude the trial. So the trial will go forward after that. The question is, can the federal trial in Washington, D.C. go forward fast enough that happens, that a verdict happens, or at least the trial starts before the election. But hopefully a verdict would happen. And, if Trump is found not guilty, which I don't think is really very possible based on the evidence in the law. We all saw the marauding of the Capitol, the slates, everything else that he did, not tamping it down for 3 hours and some, hang Mike Pence, sending that incendiary message while the insurrection was going on. And we could all see it with our eyes, not tamping it down an hour into it. But anyway, I think that trial has a real possibility, even with the Supreme Court. But that issue, even with the Supreme Court not taking it until late April, I think that trial will go forward, hopefully before the election, federal court, Washington, D.C. But Trump has raised the same issue like a month. And he said, wait a second, when I approved Michael Cohen paying her, and when I reimbursed Michael Cohen, remember, that's what all the counts are, because he keeps sending Michael Cohen a check, which he says are legal expenses. They weren't legal expenses. It was to reimburse Cohen for the payoff to Stormy Daniels, the adult film star. He raised that issue, and the judge said you had months and months to raise that issue. We have a motions and briefing schedule. You could have brought that. Your lawyers briefed that issue, and they know the facts of it for all the federal appellate courts. You could have brought it here and said, you know what? Under presidential immunity, you had a right to do whatever you claim you had a right to do. So no, your motion is denied. The trial is going forward. And while people are kind of dubious, remember that one came down first. And I said on your show, it's too bad that's the first one. And then the other indictments came down. But this is the first one that's going to go to trial. People need to get their heads around it. It's going to go to trial. There's a lot of documentary evidence in that case. Trump is probably going to defend that, Melania's tender sensibilities. Oh my God, she shouldn't have found out that I cheated on her. I wasn't trying to commit any kind of federal or state election violation. Remember, they have to prove that Trump knew and intended to commit a state electoral violation. If that was not his intent, then he's only convicted of the misdemeanor. And it's really not a case, all this joking around about Rikers Island. I don't think this is a case where he gets sent to Rikers Island, even if he gets convicted of the felony. But still, it would be dramatic that he would be convicted in the case. People are very worried what happens if there's a hung jury in this case, or even worse than that. He says, I was acquitted in New York. Even a bunch of left-wing jurors in Manhattan acquitted me. But I don't see that happening. And the case doesn't entirely hinge on, a Michael Cohen, his former fixer, or Stormy Daniels. There's, as I say, a lot of documentary evidence, and there's a lot of reasons why he was committing election interference. Trump runs around the country, Mark, and he talks about election interference. He was interfering in the 2016 election because after the grab him by the you-know-what tape that everybody saw, to have somebody talk about the fact that he had an affair with her, that he paid her for sex or whatever happened between the two of them, while his wife was home with a newborn, while Melania was home with a newborn, that would have had enough of an effect. And it was a razor-thin election as it was. That might have been the reason that we got Trump all these years and we didn't have Hillary Clinton as president. And that was election interference. And I think they're going to show that that was Trump's motive.
And finally, in Georgia, Counselor, will you tell us what's going on down there? It looks like Fani Willis will continue, the district attorney there, on that case, the Georgia election interference case.
Well, I think that ruling was very defensible. I mean, by the judge down there. He hits me as a very objective judge, unbiased, and he thought that it was good cause if the special prosecutor, the one that I call the $700,000 man, the one who was the special prosecutor, a boyfriend of hers, that whenever they became boyfriend and girlfriend, and obviously there was some credibility issues over that, and the look is terrible, the optics are terrible, but that it was not an actual conflict of interest, that she didn't have an actual conflict of interest. Had he decided that she did, it probably would have entailed disqualifying not just her, but her whole office. And that definitely would have led to some substantial delay. Mark, my feeling about that case is that she personally should not handle that case. Now, I know she thinks of herself as a good trial lawyer and that she knows a lot about these racketeering charges, which I've also expressed my misgivings about, especially applied to the lower figures in the case, the lesser figures in the case. But I think that they've got to, if I were in her shoes, I would hire the best prosecutor I could. They have funds to do it. They're able to pay that other special prosecutor $700,000. Remember, they were going to hire the former Republican, I guess, governor. Hire somebody of real stature. Give them the case and don't make any of the decisions. Let that new lawyer and that lawyer's team, or let some people on her team, but she personally should get completely out of this case, not go to the meetings, not have anything to do with the decisions, have her special prosecutor and some untainted, unconnected to her as much as possible, district attorneys from her office, and then get moving on it. That seems like a good judge they have. Move this case forward. Maybe make deals with some of the people, maybe sever some of the people, concentrate on Trump and the big wigs. This whole idea, this was like with the people, the marauders at the Capitol. A lot of them really cannot turn on anyone in the White House. They really cannot turn some of these people in any meaningful direction. Take the big fish, sever the case, take the big fish, Trump, Giuliani, Meadows, one or two others, and let's go.
Yeah, I mean, you've said that from the very beginning. You said, it's terrific that you have, cast this net so widely, but it doesn't serve. At some point, there's a diminishing return, essentially, what you were saying on it. So, David, you're going to be on, is it Fox 5 in New York? What are you doing in New York City, media-wise? Anything?
Yes, I'm probably going to do Fox 5 and some other shows tomorrow. But anybody who really wants to watch me, tune into Mark Thompson. I love being on with you. Kim, I'm sorry we didn't have a chance. I'm sorry it just my battery ran out, happens to us all. I'm sorry it happened on your show.
Well, before you go, I do have a story for you.
Please.
And it's that New York's Democratic Attorney General apparently wants the company that provided the bond, that $175 million bond for Trump in the fraud case in New York, to prove that it actually has the money. So Letitia James is asking an appeals court today to make Trump provide proof in the case of his appeal in the civil case fails. Of course, James won a $454 million judgment against Trump after he was found guilty of overinflating the value of his properties to get the more favorable bank loans. But the story is that the bond paused the judgment while Trump appeals the verdict. So if the court agrees with James, Trump has 10 days to prove the company is actually solvent. And I don't know how, I guess the company would have to provide financial details, how you do that.
Absolutely. This is normal. I see this in my criminal cases. I'm a federal criminal defense attorney. I see it with bonds. They want to make sure that the bonding agency. Now, normally the bond is small enough that you figure, even if it's $100,000 bail or bond, that company has, posted money. But this is an extraordinary amount, and the request is absolutely well grounded. Because, we all know how these sagas end with Trump. We know how the Atlantic City casino saga ended. Trump walked away okay, and here he is, back in the money, back in some money. And, who got shafted on the thing in the bankruptcy court? All the people who, not all, but many of the people who lent money, the workers, that's who got shafted. Anybody who's going to go out there and vote for Trump, hero of the working man and woman, the workers always get shafted. That's what you need to remember about Trump. This stock thing, please, right? This latest stock thing, which they've called the Trump pump and dump. And this thing, this one may very well end when they're going to win the appeal. They're going to come to collect the $175 million, and the bonding agencies goes bankrupt. The dog ate my homework, right? And they don't collect. And so Letitia James is absolutely well within her rights, and that company needs to provide financial evidence, proof, certified statements that they really do have this money.
This is interesting to me because I thought that the monies that a bonding agency puts up sit in an escrow account of some kind, so they can't say, oh, we are bankrupt, we don't have the money after all. Is that not the way it works, David?
Because it's a civil bond and it's such an extraordinary amount, I'm really not an expert on this, so I'd rather defer to someone's expertise on this. But it just seems to me that you would want to see the financial statements, and you would want to see if that's really the situation, that it's sitting in an escrow account, or if it's somebody's promise to pay. This is absolutely legitimate, given that you're dealing with Trump, his history of bankruptcies and all of that. So this trial really may start in New York. I mean, it'll be fascinating. I don't think it's going to be televised. I don't know what you've heard about that, but I haven't heard anything about it being televised, even though it's in state court. It's usually up to the discretion of the judge. And so assuming that the judge has that discretion, Trump he has an ability to turn these trials into carnivals and circuses without them being broadcast.
Well, it's interesting. You're right. I mean, I think that it's a net win for Trump if anything's on television, or he literally plays the media better than any other media player on the landscape. But wouldn't you agree that this particular case, which I think is kind of weak compared to all the other stuff sitting out there, meaning in terms of its impact, not in terms of its the damnability or how guilty he is. I just mean in terms of its ability to stick to Trump, the stink. There's much more stink on J6, much more stink on Georgia, much more stink on the documents case, in my view. But anyway, this does have one thing associated with it that does have stink to it, David Katz, and that's that it involves this affair with the porn star, even when you said it, and the Melania, the newborn. I mean, it is a kind of a bad look, and these are details in evidence, are they not?
Well, they are, and you just think to yourself, it's really kind of fascinating. Let's just think of it sort of like political scientists for a moment, right? I think it's a legal matter. It's not going to be televised, and I think the judge just feels like he has that discretion, and let's assume he has that discretion, but I don't think it's going to be televised. But from a political science point of view, you look at like Michael Cohen and Stormy Daniels. How will the swing voters really think about those people? I mean, one thing is that these are the people that Trump associated with. What do you mean nothing happened with her? There's a picture of her. We know that they were both at that resort or wherever it was. She's got an awful, the trial on TV, I guess she's going to describe again, the escapade and why she knows it was him anatomically, why she can identify him anatomically speaking. Yes, that's not a good look on TV all the time for the guy running for president, but it's what everyone said in 2016 when he came down the escalator, and ever since, all the Mexicans coming here are murderers and rapists or whatever. He said it's so outlandish, it's so terrible to lambast a whole group of people with this untrue, right, unfair stereotype. And he's done it over and over again. You look at his latest speech, you look at some of the things that he said, people are vermin. I mean, that would disqualify you for running for city council to express that. If you really believe that, and if you say it, you must really believe it. Why else would you say it? And he says it over and over again. And all this kind of stuff, the thing that's weird about him, and you see this, Mark, that he has this huge religious evangelical support. 3 Supreme Court justices. Talk about being outcome oriented, you know? So yes, we have, I mean, they must see him. The voters for him, come on, the Christian evangelicals and so forth, they must see him for who he is.
Well, the evangelicals have a transactional relationship, as you've suggested, with Trump. I've always said that. So they don't care about, yeah, I get it. You know, the Lord works in mysterious ways, imperfect vessel for the Lord's perfect plan, whatever it may be. So you're right about that. But and
let me just say one more thing.
Yeah, please.
You know, Michael Cohen, he's going to be blasted outside the courtroom. And I don't know, having Michael Cohen on the stand, I mean, I've seen him on television and stuff like that. I remember when he first came out of prison and he said he wanted to be a legal commentator. And I was on Pat Thurston's show all the time. And I said to Pat, are you going to do, you invite Katz and Cohen? I guess he's going to get first billing. I don't think she ever invited him. But, you know, you see him on TV all the time and you think how he'd be in court. My gut feeling about him is probably a better case, politically speaking, to not have him on TV all the time. They'll report what he does anyway. And so I think, I mean, the thing is, if they find him guilty, they find him not guilty. That would be the big impact, perhaps, on voters. And whether it's a good look or a bad look, I think if he's convicted, found guilty by the jury in that case, and that's going to happen one way or the other. I don't think there's any way now that Trump can derail it. So that's going to happen one way or the other. And I don't know. My prediction on it, he gets convicted, but maybe only of the misdemeanor.
Oh, wow.
He gets found guilty by the jury, but only of the misdemeanor. It's very hard to show. One of his defenses could be not just that I did this not for the campaign, but I did it so that, you know, my wife
marriage.
Find out, save my marriage and all this kind of stuff. It's embarrassing. Who wants to explain? It's humiliating. But like I said, there are some things that are very bad for him. The records, he knew those were not legal expenses, and he paid Cohen. You know, he's a penny pincher, right? He doesn't want to ever overpay anybody. This mic isn't working. Don't pay for it, right? Don't pay for this. That's Trump. And so the idea that he would have paid Trump, he would have paid Michael Cohen twice as much as the bill. He paid him twice as much as the bill because Cohen was going to have to say that it was legal expenses and pay tax on it. So he was going to need more than the payoff money. It's geared so it was enough more of the payoff money that he was going to declare it as legal income, income from practicing law, and he was going to pay the tax on it too. It was calculated to be higher. And then month after month while he was president, you know, from the Oval Office, he paid that money. And I've said this for a long time. If he hadn't disparaged Cohen so much, you know, Cohen was good, you know, Cohen was good enough for him when he was his fixer, and he was no nice guy. You'd be on the other side of a legal case from him. Believe me, he was no nice guy. He was, I think, sort of a Trump mini-me, you know, in his rudeness and his ability to sort of do anything to win, even things that weren't ethical to win. I think that's, you know, he's been disbarred. Cohen has all of those kinds of problems, right? But he didn't want to give him a White House job. It was like, you were good enough for me all those years, but I want somebody, you know, who went to the Ivy League or Berkeley or something like that in my White House. And they wouldn't have gone in the White House and searched him. They wouldn't have gone to his office in the White House, I don't believe. And then, of course, Cohen is just simmering with revenge. And if they can paint him, that's what I'm saying, if he is a trial witness, if he becomes like the national symbol for revenge and just getting your own back, and he looks like he's even more vindictive than Trump. Oh, well, the world's full of vindictive people. So what that we have a revenge-oriented candidate running on the Republican ticket. So I just think on a political science thing, I think this case is going as well as it could be going, the way that it's going. And on balance, I think likely that he'll be found guilty, but maybe only of the misdemeanor because he had to intend beyond a reasonable doubt and know that he was violating state campaign finance law for it to be boosted up to a felony. So he's got about 3 or 4 different arguments. The Melania, just doing it for Melania. Oh, I knew it was a federal crime. I knew some federal rule about that, but state, I had no idea. State law. I had no idea. No, I was violating state law. And remember, the feds declined this case. And they declined this case even once Merrick Garland was the U.S. attorney, and even once it wasn't a Trumpy, United States attorney in the Southern District of New York. And while the judges said you cannot present that in court, that's going to be presented outside the courtroom by how many spokespeople? That'll be the Trump line talking point day after day. Feds declined this case. Even the federal government knew and not that they couldn't prove it or didn't want to prove it or didn't want to bother with it beyond a reasonable doubt, but their argument will be, I was acquitted. I was found clean by the feds for this, found clean by the feds already.
I think you're right. I think that's absolutely right. There still may be a little bit, to the degree that the facts of this case come out and we're reminded, there might be some reputational damage, but I think it's all kind of baked in. Trump's support is pretty unshakable. David, love that we'll be able to see you on Fox 5 in New York. All our New York City listeners and those around the tri-state area, check out David today. They're in New York City, and we look forward to your visits here with us every Thursday. It's just terrific, and we're glad we had some breaking news today, and you set us straight on any number of things. You're the best.
Mark, you have such a cosmopolitan audience. If they're driving around London in the morning, okay, Times of London Radio. I'm the only guy. You know me. You know it's my voice. I'm the only guy without a British accent.
Our favorite barrister, David Katz. Everyone, how about it? One more time. Thank you, David. Good seeing you. All right, David Katz. Everyone, safe travels, sir.
The Mark Thompson Show.
My gosh, Albert, what's happened to the time? It's crazy.
Yeah, it's been going by fast.
I don't hear Albert. Oh, there you are. Yeah.
We're approaching something as well. We're very, very close.
Wow, look at this. We're close to
subscribers. Yeah,
close to 30,000 subscribers.
Those watching in replay will probably exceed this number. So if you're watching this back, thank you in advance.
Yeah. This will be the 30,000th Mark Thompson subscriber.
Yeah, I don't know who that person will be, but
everybody right now in the comment section. So make sure you hit that subscriber so we could see this slowly turn into 30K would be nice.
Yeah, 30K would be really nice. And of course, if you are the 30,000th subscriber, what do we have for them, Albert? Yeah.
You get nothing.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that's not exactly what I'd hoped. I was hoping for something bigger. Something.
2 more people to subscribe.
No, that's what I wanted.
We're one away. I'm on pins and needles over here.
This is pretty exciting. If you're just joining us and you're not really a subscriber yet,
we are literally one subscriber away.
Be our 30,000th subscriber and get. Unbelievable! This is
a major announcement from the Mark Thompson Show. A major announcement.
This is unbelievable. 30,001 subscribers to this channel, and if you're just joining us, welcome. We came from a radio station that's gone away, and we brought it over here, and we're slowly evolving into this new place. Thank you for the super sticker. Wes is a regular.
Big shout out.
Yeah. Wow. And we need the super stickers and super chats, and 30,003 subscribers. Thank you. This is really cool.
This feels really significant because we've, as you mentioned, came from this station that kind of imploded in on itself with the whole change of formats and the sports betting thing. And to take this and to have you grow it to this amount and to see the support, it's emotional for me, I have to tell you.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, to be honest, and we're happy to do it because I think our community is appreciative of it, and it's so cool to get your emails and to see your support, and through Patreon and PayPal. That's the only reason we're on at all.
Some people just unsubscribed.
I love how this is what's going to happen, in sports. Elise, what about it, Elise? 30,000.
Big shout out.
Yeah. $30 for 30,000. Thank you, Elise. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate that super sticker and super chat. So in sports, there'll be, like, let's say somebody gains 1,000 yards on the season. They'll stop the game. They'll have pictures. They'll give the guy the football. And there'll be a thing on the sideline. They put the football in a trunk. Now, but the game's going on, right? And they give him the ball at a subsequent play. This has happened many times. And he gets sacked for a 6-yard loss. So now he doesn't have the 1,000 yards anymore. He only has 994 yards, and that's the way the game ends. And so he doesn't have his 1,000-yard season. So we have 30,000 subscribers now, but it's very possible that over the weekend or whatever, or in the next
People
day
can
or so,
unsubscribe.
we drop back down, which
no,
is
we
possible.
hit that
so.
milestone. I'm going to stick to it. We hit
Yeah,
it.
we did hit the milestone, which is really cool. 30,000. Thank you, Luis. You're a big
shout
part of
out.
our show. We appreciate it. And Ashley, come on, look at this.
Woo-hoo!
Big shout out.
Ashley Petrus for $50, which is thank you so much. But also thank you so much, Ashley.
Thank you so much.
I love that name. It's a very cool name. You know, I'm into names. I mean,
I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry.
I am thinking of crying, Albert, because this is a cryable moment. If I
I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry.
Thank you,
We had
Ashley.
so many
and-
milestones today, Mark. We ended Mark's Madness. It was a great ending. We got 30,000 subscribers.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody who subscribes to the show. And Mike, how about Mike Ekstrom, everybody? Big shout out
Big
for
shout
Mike
out.
for the 20.
Thanks, Mike.
Really, really cool. Yeah, we hope these moments help us propel us financially, so we can cover staff and everybody else. We've got expenses with the show, and it's kind of a PBS NPR model here. Just if you're just joining us, so we exist really because of the audience. So that's the audience
I'm
contributions
guessing our
keep us
next big
going.
milestone, Mark, is 50,000. I think 50,000 would really make us pretty legit in the YouTube space.
Yeah, that seems like
That's
a
a
long
party.
way off.
That's
But,
going to be, we'll have to do something really significant for 50, right?
Yeah, I guess. I
Plugging
don't know.
away,
It's-
David K. Johnston is kind of been our moneymaker. Everybody loves his segment. It does so well. It's really helped us, and
It's
we'll see where it goes.
When do they send you the plaque?
Oh, not for. I think they've made a plaque even harder to get now. It's 100,000 or a couple 100,000 or
100,000
whatever.
for the
Okay.
silver plaque. Yeah.
I don't care about the plaque. I don't care about any of that stuff. I really just want to keep the show on the air and try
Yeah.
to keep us sustained. But everyone gives $3 today. It adds up. Sorry, have kids going to college. Julie, thank you for the 5 spot, though. That's
Big
great.
shout out.
Shout out. Yeah, if you don't know, let me just mention this, and then I will we'll move on. But I did want to mention that I subbed twice, too, says Deirdre Lozica. I subbed twice, too. Somebody said they subbed twice on the first day of the show. Congrats to MT and Kim and the crew. Yeah, very great. That under every video, there should be a link to our Patreon and PayPal. So find that, follow that link, and if you want to become part of the community that regularly supports the show, that's a great way to do it. So appreciate your subscriptions, and the subscriptions are free. Your participation is free. Sharing the show is really important. That's how we grow it. So thank you. Those are all the free ways, and if you want to help us financially, that's the way. TheMarkThompsonShow.com. There are click-throughs, hot links to Patreon and PayPal. But as I say, under every video, there's Patreon and PayPal as well. Today, it seems putting out short videos increases YouTube subscribers. Yeah, it does. It does. And by the way, putting out the short videos costs money. That's why, that's one of our big expenses, actually, is on the shorts videos, because they're done by people who, really know how to do those shorts videos, and those people cost money. Delette, come on, Delette, with us from the beginning.
Big shout out.
Big shout out to Delette. Thank you for the 50. I'm not going to cry. Delette is a regular. Oh, it's very, very cool. Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
Yeah.
thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. You haven't heard the thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Really haven't heard that in a long time. So
I blame you.
Well, Kim, I don't think there's any reason to be.
Big shout out.
Let's not have the acrimony of the show seep
Vilma
in here
thinks-
at the end.
Vilma thinks
Mark,
by
you-
the end of the year, we're going to get to 50K.
We'll see. I don't know.
Yeah.
Gosh, that seems like a long way off, but maybe.
But from 20 to 30 has been our quickest ever. We went from actually 20 to like 26 really fast, and it kind of like slowed down. But it was
Yeah, I will say this just about, since we're starting the short video fund, says Ren. Thank you for the 10 spot, Ren.
Big shout out.
Yeah. The short videos are great. The challenge it's a lot of work, some work for me, because I have to try to find those parts of the show that I'm just being, we always speak very honestly on the show
Sure.
about everything going on. So if you have a question about something, ask me and I will tell you always. I'll give you the truth. I'm not going to hide anything. We always maintain that, and that will always be the case. So the thing about the shorts is it takes a lot of work to find the stuff that then can be put into a 60-second chunk of the show. So that's the big thing. And to find the stuff that will get audience. You know, some of the shorts, like I like stuff that's not political to be out there also. Honestly, that stuff doesn't get as much in the way of traction. So we tend to feature people like David K. Johnston and David Katz and some of the other political, and I think there's some stuff with Anthony today. So that also shares with the audience at large, people who don't watch the show regularly, it shares with them a little taste of what we do on the show. And then they come and maybe they subscribe and maybe they contribute, maybe they join our community, you know. So that's what's going on. But yeah, thank you for the shorts are expensive, but they're worth it. I mean, that's how you grow audience. But what I was going to say is it's getting more crowded on YouTube. It's getting more crowded. So, you know, Albert, when we talk about, well, our growth from 20 to 30 only took this long, it's more and more competitive. It's very hard for us to exist out here. So
which
I really
you could
appreciate
say
the
is
support.
more impressive too, because Mark, you came into YouTube pretty late, and we've already grown to 30K, which speaks to something. You could watch anything you want on YouTube. People are still choosing to watch the Mark Thompson show. At least 30,000 people choose to. So,
yeah, it's very cool. Thank you. Yeah, that's a good point too. Karen Combs with a 10 spot. How about it, Karen? With this is
Big
a
shout out.
super chat, day one subscriber. Big shout out.
Big shout out.
Love that you were able to continue. I was devastated after KGO went bye-bye. Yeah, me too, Karen. It's truly, thank you so much.
Thank you so
being here
much.
From the very beginning.
I actually was walking in the city, and I just happened to be on Battery and Broadway yesterday, and I did see our old friend, and he's a KMBR PD, Adam Copeland. So
Oh, yeah. We used to have Adam on the show occasionally.
he was like, "What are you doing here?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just reminiscing a little bit, walking around the city." I just happened to be like in the area, so I was like, "Okay, well."
Standing
KGO was so
outside,
great. It
looking
was
longingly.
it was a beautiful radio station that we came from, and it was also a wonderful part of San Francisco. Right up the street is North Beach. It was right down the street is the financial district. It's really sad.
Yeah, Chinatown was just a stone's throw over. It was
Chinatown was like 2 blocks away.
Yeah, it was so close.
You know, that was the best job I've ever had, I think. I've had a lot of jobs and hosted a lot of big shows and been part of some big shows and really historic stuff I've done and been party to. But what I'm trying to say is I love the KGO experience. It was so great. And this is a lot more work, but, you know, maybe it'll be a lot more rewarding too, ultimately. It's
just being on camera, Mark. We talk about this, like not even on air all the time. Like, man, back then we could just press play and go, but now we got a lot more preparation.
Yeah, now you got people going, well, what is your background doing? How come you wear those big headphones and you go like this? Maybe you have too much merch. You should have less. You should have more. You should have, where do the headphones go? You should wear the headphones. You shouldn't wear them. It's like, you talk about the background too much. People, you can't win. It's so difficult. But I love the back and forth with the audience that we have now that we didn't have, I think, at KGO.
Yeah.
Vicky and Sausalito, Mark, amazing show today. Big shout out, Vicky. Thanks and congrats on the 30K. Thank you for the 20. And Vicky, it's true. We did have a great show today. Katz was terrific. And we talked to that documentary filmmaker, Mark Harris, who has the new book out. And we talked to Anthony Davis. Those are just the guests. Kim had some great news. Hey, now tomorrow, I want to follow up. And I'm going to ask you, Kim, to find out more details on that huge cash heist that you reported on today. Because I was seeing in our chat that there are details on that huge heist, how they did it a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Can we just find a little bit more? I love heists and I love capers.
Okay.
And I think that there are details there that we didn't have time to get into today.
My
Those are a
newscast
lot of mattresses. You got to hide that cash under, Mark.
My newscast is pretty long. So, but tomorrow I'll do an in-depth special, a KGO 810 spotlight, as it were.
Yeah. So this was 30. This was 30 million. That was taken in Los Angeles. So we're gonna leave the show now. But before I do, as you know, we said it was one of the biggest cash heists in the history of Los Angeles. $30 million stolen. Now,
In one night.
In one night. Before this $30 million was stolen, what was the most money stolen in the history of Los Angeles at one time. Prior to this $30 million heist, there was another caper, and they made off with a lot of money from an armored facility in Los Angeles the same way that these guys made off with all this money from an armored facility. These guys made off with $30 million. 18.5 million says, who said that? Karen Cooper says 30. Deirdre, I'm giving it to her. Deirdre, 18.9 million. From the former Dunbar Armored Facility. Here's what I'm thinking. After you've let thieves get away with 18.9 million, probably you're not going to be around as an armored facility anymore. Do you agree with me? Yeah, I think you're going to kind of pretty much that's going to be the end. So I don't know. It's but this is also
The Mark Thompson Show.
Trump proves no one's above the law, says Phineas, and he proves that we have no laws.
Yeah.
They could disguise the truck on the heist with an Acme money hauling company sign. That's from Think It Through. Trump is broke due to paying off judges, says Donald.
Oh, God.
I think paying off lawyers is one of the reasons that he's got the RNC to pay off the lawyers. Now, go watch, says Randy, The Truth versus Alex Jones on HBO.
No.
Jones is a horrible, disgusting, evil person, and the fact that Trump supports him is very troubling. Supports him, not only supports him, had him at the White House. Remember when Trump was president, he had all those guys. Jones was like the head of the spear. You had Diamond and Silk. You had everybody with a crackpot conspiracy theory, anybody with a decent following on YouTube. They all just came in there with utter madness. I mean, at the White House, it was crazy.
Embarrassing.
And on documentary filmmaking, Alan says, learn so much about the North Beach scene, live music, and topless shows in the Carol Doda documentary. Yeah, that is one that was very well reviewed by Michael Snyder, the Carol Doda documentary. I want to see that. There are a lot of docs I want to see. Look at this from Lee. Lee and Aileen, who are here with us from the beginning. Big shout out. Thank you for $30. It's 30 for your 30.
Big shout out.
Lee and Aileen, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You guys are great. I'm not going to cry.
I'm not gonna cry.
I'm not going to cry, but I am. Wow. Let's go for 50K, says Vilma. Thank you for the 5-spot, Vilma.
Big shout out.
Also here from the beginning. If you're a newcomer, I will tell you, RIP their insurance policy. Yeah, that's absolutely true. I'm sure that cash is insured, but I was just seeing that there was no one at that facility that was protecting the cash. There was no, right? Isn't that what you were saying, Kim, also? That no one was actually there. Yeah.
I don't know if there's anyone there, but it wasn't, there was no alarms going off.
There's a huge inside job story. I can't wait to hear what happens, you know. Oceans 15 or whatever it'll be. If you're new, Fridays are big around here. Join us tomorrow for Friday Fabulous Florida and Politics with Michael Shore.
I'm Shadow Stevens for The Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Thanks to everyone. Congratulations to Sally, the winner of Mark's Madness. Woohoo! See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.